break out the mittens and the scarves because Dave Nicholls is about to take us on a bone-chilling ride through the thrilling world of Paralympic bobsled. Join us as we celebrate his cool journey and uncover the secrets of his frosty triumph. I talked to you the first time. I had just moved here to Virginia and really was just trying to get on my feet, I guess, it was kind of there. So I was looking to guys like you and some of the wheelchair bodybuilders and stuff for a little bit of inspiration myself. And, so I sort of kicked myself in the ass and got up and moving. And,
Cool.
now we're here to talk to you today about the Israeli bobsled team, which is wild to me.
Yeah, it's a little crazy, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Right up there with the Jamaican team, huh?
Right. It's pretty wild. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, the Jamaican bobsled thing. Cool runnings.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
They call me the
Right on.
frozen chosen.
Oh, okay, I got you. So how did you manage to get into the bobsledding thing?
Well, a buddy of mine, um, uh, actually was over at the Utah Olympic Park and said, "Dave, why don't you come up to the park?" And I said, "Why?" He
Mhm.
said, "Just come on up." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Quit asking questions. Just get up here." And it's only like 2 miles from the house. So I'm like, "All right, I'll come up." And so I get up there and I drove up to the top, to the men's start, windy road going all the way up the
Mhm.
mountain. And then I get out and I see him getting out of his chair into a bobsled. And I was like, "Wow, that's pretty crazy. You gonna go down the hill in that thing?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, it's pretty crazy." I'm like, "Huh, okay." And so I had seen him do it, and another guy was pushing his sled was an amputee with a like prosthetic leg,
Okay.
and pushed the sled and they take off and it looked super fun. And they come back up to the top and they said, "Okay, Dave, now it's your turn." I'm like,
Right.
wait a minute. I'm not doing 70, 80 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour and 4 or 5 Gs. Well,
Wow.
you're not gonna drive, Dave. We're putting you in the back of the sled so you can get a feel for it. I'm like, really? We didn't discuss this.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, well, whatever, give it a shot. And it was pretty crazy, man. I don't know if like when you were a kid, like your brother or sister ever stuffed you in the washing machine or the dryer. Um,
The closest I got is I think we rode cardboard boxes down the stairs at my grandmother's house, something like that, to
yeah,
sledding anyway.
it was it was pretty crazy. Uh, Bear with me 1 second. I just got a note
Sure.
from my computer. It's gonna die, so I just gotta plug it in here. So
No
give me
worries.
one.
Yep.
I don't want to get injured. There we go. Anyway, so I took this ride, and you don't see a thing. As a brakeman, your head is down between your legs,
Mhm.
and your shoulders are low. Everything's got to be inside the sled. So in case something happens and you roll, you don't want to your shoulder on the ice going 80 miles an hour and people get ice burn. It's pretty
Right.
bad. So anyway, my head's between my legs and I was just praying the whole time this guy knows what he's doing. And it was pretty wild. We made it to the bottom and I was a brakeman, so I had to pull the brakes when he told me to, and it
Right.
worked out pretty good. And he said, "Well, you want to think about driving?" And I said, "Well, yeah. How do we do this?" And so there was a lot of pushback from the park at the time. The person that was running the program, the bobsled program, really didn't, to be honest with you, want anybody that was disabled on his track,
Hmm.
and it was pretty bad. They wouldn't give me a driving school. I, you know, tried and tried, and finally I had a woman who was an advocate for other adaptive sports, who actually was the um, person who was consulting the park for the Olympics in
Hmm.
'02. And, she basically told the park, look, you're a public facility. You're having these classes. You can't deny somebody who's in a wheelchair from participating in a driving school. Because
Okay.
you don't just get in the thing and drive. You have to go to a driving school. I mean, it's a completely different thing
Right.
than driving a car. And so they actually shut the park down for a week and a half and gave me my own driving school for 2 hours
Nice.
a day, which was amazing. And you don't start at the top um, like any other winter sport,
Sure.
like skiing, whatever. You start from halfway up or from the lower starts. So there's some lower starts there, and they started me at the lower start, and I graduated up and up, and then it was time
Hmm.
to go from the top, and it was sink or swim, and what they
Right.
would do is they would attach a cable to the back of the sled, like a winch,
Hmm.
and like
Okay.
winch you down to like curve 1 or 2 or whatever. It wouldn't go that far, but um, there's a big difference in speed going from curve 1 versus curve 2 versus curve 6, and there's 15 curves on this track, and so sink or swim, and I
Hmm.
made it.
Nice.
No crashing, and it was really crazy. And my brakeman was happy we didn't crash, and so it was good. And at that time, there was nobody doing bobsled who was
Hmm.
disabled, other than
Right.
my friend and me, and the guy with the prosthetic leg. So we found another guy with a prosthetic leg, and then the two of us would kind of race, between each other. We had two
Hmm.
different sleds, and so we kind of got a little friendly competition going there and stuff. And of course, I won.
Right.
So this was about 18, 19 years ago
Wow.
now. The sport didn't exist, and this was the only track in the world that was allowing us to
Hmm.
participate. And since I had proved myself and made it down from the top, they let me continue to drive from the top. But there was nowhere to compete for us. There was no
Hmm.
Olympic sport of bobsled at the time. So
Right.
um, I formed the U.S. Adaptive Bobsled and Skeleton Association as a 501c3. And we looked to start to get some donations and some uniforms and try to look kind of professional, but we didn't have anybody to race against. So
Mm.
we made a contact with somebody at the track in Calgary in Canada, and they said, sure, come on up here. And so we brought the sleds up there, drove from here in Park City to Calgary. It's about a little over 1,000 miles. So it was a long
Wow.
2-day
Yeah.
trip. And you're going, you know, through Montana and Idaho, and there's just miles of nothing. And so the weather can be really bad. And I remember this one trip we had to, I mean, you just couldn't see. They closed, the highway because the visibility was zero.
No
And we
problem.
found our way off the road to a hotel. And my buddy, gets out of the car, and he's just out of the truck, and he just goes flat down on his butt,
Mm.
because the whole parking lot was ice. My dog jumps out and does like a face plant because he slips on the ice. I get out, get in my chair, and I didn't think it was possible for wheelchairs to go like sideways.
Sideways. Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
I went sideways down the parking lot because it was a little bit of a ramp, a little bit of a
Right.
slope in the parking lot.
Mhm.
And I just kept sliding sideways. I'm like, oh God, this
Oof.
is good. And so this was a one trip that we made to Calgary anyway. So they let us on the track there from their halfway point, and we showed them that we could do it. They, got one or two guys interested, and so the sport started to
Mhm.
grow a little, and we had some friendly competition. And finally, they let us go from the top up there in Calgary, and that was a pretty tough track. It had what they call a kreisel, which is like a 360-degree
Mhm.
turn, and getting in properly and getting out properly are two very important things, and
Right.
it's very easy to lose it and crash there. So,
Mhm. So
so it was,
was that the same track as the 88 Calgary games? That was
yes,
in
sir.
88, I think it was.
Yeah,
Right on.
yeah,
And so you've been at it for like 20 years now, right? Ish, give or take.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and how long have you been injured?
Since
Or how long
2000,
ago did you get injured rather?
2004, February 28th,
Okay.
and
Wow.
that
So this is
there's
pretty new after that then, right?
yeah, it was fairly recent after that, and
Hmm.
I decided to get into it. I had actually seen a little bit of hockey, sled hockey,
Hmm.
uh, and got a little bit involved in that too, but really was focused more on bobsled. And so it
Hmm.
became my mission and my buddy's mission, and the four of us to try and do what we could to grow the sport, expand it, and maybe
Right.
someday be recognized as an official Paralympic sport.
Right, right. Yeah, that'd be great.
So we had guys, from New Zealand we had recruited. We had
Hmm.
guys from Australia, um, some women from Italy, some guys from Greece, and we
Oh
said, hey,
wow. So all
this
over.
event, come on over, and we got a little funding. We can help with the airfare, and so we had a little event here in Park City, and then Calgary said that they would have an event, and then the Latvians got interested, and they're huge when it comes to bobsled. A small country, but they're huge
Yeah.
on bobsled, and so they got involved. Great Britain got involved, and then um, the international governing body of the sport saw what we were doing, and decided to help us and
Okay.
make
And when was that?
this was God, this was I think about 11, 12 years ago now.
Okay.
And
So
but
you guys had to be at it for a long time before before getting
yeah,
recognized and all that. It's like
well,
an
the thing
uphill
is
battle anyway.
definitely uphill, but sadly the International Paralympic Committee moved the target on us a couple times.
Okay.
First they said all we needed was 8 different countries,
Hmm.
um, so many World Cups, so many athletes from each country, so many athletes from each continent, fulfill these criteria, these qualifications, and bam, you guys will be in as an official sport. Well, then they changed it to 10 countries. Then they changed it to
Hmm.
12 countries. And then when they changed it to 14 countries, we only had 13.
Oh wow.
And so, we were this close, and we thought we had fulfilled all the other requirements. And, we just needed one more country. So the international governing body said, does anybody have dual citizenship? If you have dual citizenship, maybe consider sliding for another country, and that'll put us
Hmm.
over the top. So, okay, of course, I started this thing, and I'm like, okay, I guess I got to do this because I'm eligible for Israeli citizenship for my heritage. And so, next thing you know, I took my dog and myself and my business, and I moved to Israel. Lived there for about a year, got my citizenship, started sliding for Israel about 5 years ago on the para side,
Okay.
but found out about a rule in the able bodied side that they have, that if you're the pilot and you have a broken ankle or a busted hamstring or something, you
Hmm.
can get in the sled first and start
Hmm.
seated before everybody else starts running and pushing the sled. So I'm like, okay, well, that works for me. And I had always been driving a 2-man sled.
Okay.
Um, but the international governing body decided that the sport would grow faster in what they call a monobob, or a one-person
Hmm.
sled.
Oh,
So
wow.
um, a few people saw this as an economic adventure, to make some money, and they invested in the development of like 20 different, um, 20 sleds, monobob sleds, and they put a few other adaptations like some wings on the back, so if the sled went over, it
Hmm.
could possibly pop back up again.
Okay.
And they put a seat belt, and you had the option based on your injury of having a lower or a higher seat back and more of a seat belt. And so some of these adaptations, some straps inside to hold your legs from flopping around and
Hmm.
stuff. And so we started having competition, World Cups, around the world at different tracks. And that grew slowly because, you know, I could tell you, I was the first athlete in Europe, to show them that somebody in a wheelchair could be a bobsled pilot. And when I
Hmm.
was getting out of my sled, getting into, when I was getting out of my chair into the sled, you could cut the air with a knife. I mean,
Hmm.
there were tons of people all over watching, and
Right.
it was like everything got silent, like dead silent. Hell, I just got in it and I said, "Okay, let's go," and we just went.
Right.
And
So it
that
was
was
sort of a spectacle everybody's seeing if you're going to take a dive, really.
yeah, So that was in Latvia, and then
Okay.
we did the same thing in Austria, in
Hmm.
Innsbruck, and so then they saw that we could do this. So now the Austrian track would have us for World Cup. Now the Latvian track would have us for a World Cup. Canada had us for a World Cup.
Hmm.
But Lake Placid, New York, still would not let us on the track because they, quote, didn't want a para to become a quad. I'm
Right.
like, really? Okay. So I worked on them for a while. They put me in the back of a 4-man passenger sled because they do passenger rides.
Right.
Oh man, I could barely hang on because part of my injury affected my hands,
Hmm.
and I had all I could do to hold on. With that track has 20 curves, and
Okay.
one of the most difficult tracks in the world, and that's why they were really hesitant to have any of us on that track.
Hmm.
Finally, they let us go from start 6, and then start 5, and then start 4, and then finally from the
Hmm.
top. And so I was the first athlete that made it from the top and then opened that track up for us. So point is, it's taken
Nice.
a long time for tracks to feel comfortable with us,
Hmm.
and see that we can do this, and that
Right.
coupled with the IPC continuing to change the criteria. But with Israel, we had a 14th country, and then we thought that we fulfilled all the criteria. But again, they
Hmm.
said, no, we're looking back at these races, and you didn't have all 14 countries participating in every race.
Mm.
So anyway, it's still not a Paralympic sport, but we believe this season that we finally finished all the criteria. So,
Nice.
they make these announcements like 7 years in advance.
Hmm.
So, I don't think we're going to qualify for Torino, where
Hmm.
actually there's been a whole thing. They were supposed to be doing the track there, and they're saying that they don't think it's going to be ready for in time for the game. So right now, bobsled, skeleton, and luge, the sliding
Hmm.
sports, have nowhere to participate in the
Hmm.
next 2026 Olympics. So that's still up in the air. People are saying it could be in Switzerland, it could be in Austria, it could be in Norway, or even New York, Lake Placid.
Right.
So,
Right.
but anyway, since I had really been sliding 2-man all my career, and they had this rule that I told you about
Hmm.
earlier. I began competing in the able-bodied circuit, and
Okay.
okay, we weren't winning any medals in the 2-man because we're down 50% pushing power.
Right.
Normally,
Right.
two guys are running, right?
Hmm.
Um, but then I learned to drive a four-man, and
Okay.
I guess I'm still the only para-pilot in the world that is
Right.
licensed to drive a four-man. So, um, most of the guys that are competing that are para or amputees are happy with the monobob, but
Hmm.
I'm not because it's a different, it really is a different sport. The sled handles
Right.
differently. You're
Hmm.
all there by yourself. It's a machine that pushes the sled in the beginning, and
Hmm.
it's just different, The sport of bobsled with two-man and four-man, it's more camaraderie, it's more fun, and you are responsible for everything.
Right.
All the equipment, everything, the runners, the sleds, the shoes, the
Hmm.
helmets, all this stuff. And on the para side, they really do everything for you. And the IBSF owns those sleds, so
Okay.
you know you can't do any mechanical work on it. You can't adjust
Hmm.
the alignment. You can't adjust anything. I mean, I had a sled one time. The back was almost like this,
Oof.
and like,
And
why aren't
what you
I
see is what you get, right?
slowing me down? Yeah.
Yeah.
So this way, I'm responsible for my own equipment. I'm responsible for everything,
Hmm.
and it's more fun, And so I've been racing two man
Kind
and
of like
four.
having a race car. Like I know, see where I'm at is race car country, and all these jokers work on their own cars and all that. But kind of like that. It's sort of a love of the sport rather than, it's not a
Yeah,
financial thing or anything like that. It's a for real love of the game. I
yeah,
can dig it.
exactly. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so that's been our deal, and I won. Actually, we in the sport they give us medals 1 through 6 is podium because it's
Hmm.
you finish by 100th or a tenth of a second, really.
Right.
So you get medals 1 through 6. So we got our first medal in 2019, 2020 here at the Olympic Park in four-man. We beat
Hmm.
out other teams that either crashed or had shitty driving or whatever. So it's possible for me to medal. Matter of fact,
Hmm.
I qualified Israel for the first time ever um, in the World Cup Championships for able-bodied, which was in
Wow.
Whistler. It was
Okay.
amazing. So that's a really tough track. And if you guys remember those Olympics, the first day of the Olympics, somebody died,
Hmm.
going down the
Wow.
track.
Hmm.
So it was pretty sad. And they ended up moving the start down to reduce the speeds. And it's a really,
Hmm.
really crazy track. They have a curve up there called 50-50. And
Hmm.
it's named 50-50 for a reason because 50% of the sleds go over. And
Oof.
first
Damn.
day of official training, there was 19 crashes in a row.
Wow.
I was not one of them because I had crashed the week before. But it was cool because here I am, the dude in the wheelchair is the only guy that makes it down that doesn't crash.
Nice.
And the announcer from NBC was even saying, that well, he could see the sled because the sled that I had, it wasn't my sled at the time. I rented the sled from New Zealand, and at the
Okay.
last minute, there's a whole story behind that. They didn't qualify, we did, but I had crashed the sled, and you could see there was like black tar fiberglass repair on the sled, and
Wow.
the announcer was kind of joking about it that he knew that I crashed the sled
Hmm.
last week, but I corrected my mistake because it wasn't really curve 13, which is 50-50, the curve I'm talking about.
Okay.
It's what you do in curve 10, 11, and 12. If you're not lined
Okay.
up properly on the right line in 10, 11, and 12, forget about 13. It's all over.
Oh wow.
But I didn't know that until a coach sat me down and drew it out for me and showed me,
Yeah.
here's where you want to enter 10. Here's your line you want to be on 11, and you have to be here on 12. Otherwise, forget about 13 because it's such a
Right.
short curve. You got to get on it and off it immediately. And it's on one of the videos on the website on
Okay.
bobsledisrael.org. It's the world champs in Whistler.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I was looking that over. That was pretty wild, man. Those things are fast.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
check
that's
this. Like you're a bobsled pilot, and you said you had some issues with your hands due to your injury. Do you mind talking about your injury level and then like how you have managed to sort of overcome that as a pilot?
Sure. Well, I almost didn't because as the sport was developing, um, someone who was in a federation, I won't tell you which one,
Right.
um, they decided to take a doctor and make some rules. And one of the rules was that anybody that had a T4 injury or above, they would not
Hmm.
allow to participate.
Oh, wow.
And this person actually made a meeting with me after I've already been driving for like 6 or 7 years,
Hmm.
had never had a crash. This person made a meeting with me. He was the president of a federation and met me at a restaurant. Says, Dave, I have some news for you. What's up? Well, we kind of feel that, as the sport develops, that we don't think anybody who has a T4 or above should really participate for safety reasons. I said, really? I said, well, what does that mean? I'm C7 incomplete and I have a
Hmm.
T5, 6. Well, well, I guess you're not going to be able to slide anymore. I'm like, wait
Hmm.
a minute. You're telling me the sport that I created, that I worked hard, that I recruited every athlete in this sport, and you're telling me I'm not going to be able to compete anymore? I said, that's not going to work. No way.
Right.
You know, so there ended up being like these court battles and all this other stuff. And I don't want to get into all that stuff, but yeah, with the C7, it affected my hands, so I can't open or close my hands all the way.
Okay.
So with the sport, you're holding on to what they call like a D ring, and you
Hmm.
really need to be able to put your fingers around the D ring. It's like a
Right.
big carabiner, and all you're doing
Hmm.
is basically going like this or like that.
Okay.
And I have enough that I'm able to do that, and I've been able to demonstrate for years that I can drive a sled safely,
Hmm.
whether it's 2 man or now 4 man.
Hmm.
So that was a challenge, and if you have limited abs, that makes it tougher as well. Although
Hmm.
you do have the option in the Para-Monobob sled to have a like a weight. It looks like a weight belt that you
Okay.
wear across your stomach,
Hmm.
and it's ratcheted in, so it holds you in, and it pretty much holds you like your foot would be in a ski boot, nice and snug.
Okay.
Because you don't
Right.
want to be
Right.
going back and forth like this,
Right.
and a little extra movement. If the sled's not going straight, if it's going
Hmm.
sideways, that's 100th of a second. You're done. You lost the race. So everything
Right.
has to be
Okay.
tight and snug. Um,
Hmm. Now, do you use any gear like that, or do you just sort of sit in there and hold yourself, what have you?
no, actually, what I do is I put pads on my shoulders, almost like
Okay.
motorcycle pads,
Hmm.
but they're literally like pads of styrofoam. And I also have them in my sleds attached to the
Okay.
sides of the sled. So
Hmm.
I'm snug. That prevents me from going back and forth
Okay.
side to side. And I have the seat set up so it's tilted back enough. So technically, you should be sitting all the way back and just
Hmm.
barely looking over the front because you don't want
Okay.
your head up like that. It's not aerodynamic, but
Sure.
you want to be able to just obviously see over the front cowling. So I have it customized for myself. Um, and once it's your turn to go,
Hmm.
um, the officials will say, okay, Nicholls to the line. So my guys will bring the sled up, put it in the groove because there's a groove for the first 50 yards and then it disappears. The reason for that
Okay.
is when the guys are running and pushing with the sled, if there was no
Hmm.
groove, the sled could go all over the place when they're pushing it.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's in like railroad tracks, if you will. But again,
Hmm.
that disappears after 50 yards. So once they say, okay, Nicholls to the line, when I have a green light, then my guys can put the sled down in the groove, and I have 60 seconds to get in the sled, get settled, and have my guys run and push the sled and get it across the first timing eye, which is 50 yards down the track. So
Hmm.
it's a pretty quick thing. Sometimes my leg gets caught on a cable because there's cables that control the steering and I know something's not right. It's the last minute, I'm trying to get my leg in the right position, and then I'm trying to grab the D-rings and all this stuff. So I can usually do it in like 24 seconds, but that's getting out of my chair into the sled and getting ready to what I need to do. And
Okay.
then we still have to push and run and get across the timing ice. So it's not a lot of time to mess around, you know.
I got you. So
That's
like, so on the start, like you have to hop out. Is that a time thing, hopping out of the wheelchair and getting into the sled?
well, I can only get in the sled obviously once it's turned over and ready to go.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that whole process, them turning over the sled, putting it in the groove, me getting out of
Okay.
my chair, me getting in
Uh,
the sled, and us passing the first timing eye, all
right.
have to be done in less than 60 seconds.
Okay. So it is sort of a thing that you have to be able to do in order to do it. Okay.
Well,
I was
that's
just
that's
checking.
for the able-bodied
Right.
competition. On
Right.
the
I
on the
can dig it.
para side, you're already sitting in the sled, and there's two
Right.
guys that pick up the
Yeah.
sled and put it in the groove, and you just wait
Hmm.
for them to slingshot you off in the machine, and that's
Sure.
basically it. So it's different.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. I get that. I was just kind of like, it's pretty wild that, because really you're an incomplete quad slash pair. So like, it's how the hell are you both? That's wild in and of
Yeah,
itself.
yeah,
And then you're in the able-bodied competition, so you have to hop in and get going and a certain amount of time too. So just phenomenal, really phenomenal.
it's
And on ice
and
on top of that.
yeah, exactly. My chair is on the ice, and like if I don't like, I have the system. Like the first thing I do is I throw one leg over, so that's
Mhm.
preventing the chair from moving, and it's
Right.
flat at the top.
Sure.
So I'm already kind of secure. Then I throw my other leg over, and then I just pull myself in and hope that my legs go in the right position down there. Otherwise,
Gotcha.
because like I say, the steering mechanisms are down there, and there's
Yeah.
bungees and cables, and I've
Right.
had my foot get caught in one of those cables. And I'm like, oh shit! In
Mm.
the last minute, I'm like trying to get it
Right.
right. So
Yeah.
it stresses you out a little bit. But
Hmm.
it's my choice to be doing it. I'm putting myself in that situation. But I can't gum up the works for everybody else. I have to be
Right.
ready, and I don't want to screw it up for my team either. So, I mean, there's a lot of time and effort and money that goes into the equipment, flights, hotels, cars,
Sure.
fuel, coaching fees, track fees. There's a lot of
Right.
stuff that's involved in the sport. So,
Yeah.
when push comes to shove, you got to be ready and you got to have your crap together.
Right. Right. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. The coach isn't doing it for free.
Right, right, right.
But
And there's
that's wild.
a lot of
I
a
mean,
lot of
because you say, I guess you see on TV, like you see on TV, like the sports dreams and all this, that like, here's this magic coach that hands them some kind of, some like tools out of the toolbox of, ancient wisdom. And, it all seems like he's doing it for just the kindness out of his heart or whatever. But really, you have to pay those coaches pretty good sum to get to that elite level
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. It's good,
So,
and it takes a lot of focus and concentration, and that's one of the things I really like about it.
mhm,
Is like I'll drive the track in my mind like 60, 70 times before the race.
mhm,
Literally, what am I doing on curve one? What am I doing on curve two? What am I doing on
right.
curve three? Because every track is different, and every curve is different. Where
Mhm,
you enter the curve, what you do. Bobsled is where, what, and when, and how much. Where do
mhm,
you enter? Do you enter middle to the curve, or do you enter middle right, or middle left? Okay, where's the pressure? Every curve has a pressure. Maybe it has
mhm.
two pressures. That's the only time you can control the sled, like a ski. Like a ski on a flat surface, you can't control because there's
Right.
no
Okay.
pressure.
Right.
So it's the only time I can actually have steering control is when the sled is hitting one of those pressures. So I have to know, where's the pressure in curve one? Where's the pressure in curve two? Where's the pressure in curve three? Oh, curve four has two pressures. Curve five has one pressure. Okay, now I'm in the curve. How do I want to exit the curve? Do I
Mhm,
want to be late? Do I want to be early? Where do I want to exit? So you study all this before you go down the track. You do a track walk, and you literally
Hmm.
walk down the track if you can walk with your coach. What,
Right.
what we do, they tether me down with these long ropes behind my chair on the back of my
Okay.
chair, and then there's two guys that have like ice crampers or ice cleats on their shoes,
Hmm.
and they're walking me down and the track, and
Wow.
hopefully they don't let go. But I'm studying the curve, or I have a coach with me, he has a laser, and he says, Dave, right here, that's where you need to finish your steer right there. Or here's where you need to start your steer. And if
Hmm.
I'm late, I miss the pressure, I can roll the sled, I can go
Ooh,
through the roof, I can go out of the
yeah.
track. You can't miss any of that when you're going 70, 80, 90 miles an hour. It
Right.
happens so quick. And crashing, let me tell you, when you crash, you don't even know you've crashed until a few seconds later, because
Right.
you hear it. And of course, your head and your helmet is bouncing off the wall, and your shoulders coming out of the sled on the ice. So that's why the guys wear Kevlar crash suit under their
Okay.
speed suit, so you
Hmm.
don't get second and third degree burns, man. It's looks, I've seen it. It looks bad. You can
Yeah.
imagine your shoulder or your arm or your elbow on the ice going 80 miles an hour. It's going to
Hmm.
burn,
Right.
if it's not crushed when the sled slams into the sidewall. I mean,
Sure.
it's
Sure.
not fun crashing. If you ever been in a car crash, it's like a car crash that
Few of
doesn't
them.
stop for a minute. It keeps
Yeah.
going for a minute. You keep
Right.
bouncing off the walls.
Bouncing
That's what
around.
happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I,
horrible,
I
man.
I used to watch it like every chance I could. It's not something that's often televised, but I would watch like the bobsled, the luge, all that stuff, just because it was really fast, and they would crash, and that's pretty wild watching them just bounce down through there. I guess through the track, so it was very exciting. I hadn't seen any in ages now, but aside from just watching over your videos, I was like, yeah, that's wild. Why don't we see this anymore? Like it's just not readily available out there like a football game or something. But
Well, it's such
anyhow,
a short season too. I mean, the season is really, I mean, it depends where you are in the world, but most of the time the season is really November, December, January, February, um, maybe March, and that's it.
right.
So it's really, 5 months of the year.
Hmm.
NBC Universal Sports, when there was Universal Sports, if there still is Universal Sports, I don't know. They
Right.
usually cover it. Um,
Hmm.
they cover the World Cups, the North America Cup and the Europa Cup. Those are usually done by live stream. Some
Hmm.
local TV
Hmm.
stations have those and stuff, but most of the time the coverage
Gotcha.
is with NBC and Wide World of Sports or whatever it is there.
Right. Right. Yeah. I remember the wide world of sports. I don't know if they call it that anymore.
They probably don't. I'm dating
Yeah.
myself here. You
Yeah,
know.
right. So, just sort of a question because like the goal here is to get it out there to people who are sort of newly injured. Um, first, like, how did you get injured? Uh, talk a little bit about that if you don't mind, and then we'll move into sort of some kind of like advice that you would give sort of the people who are still in recovery, say 6 months and further.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I was a NCAA ski racer in college.
Hmm.
That was my deal. And and after that, I was working at a ski resort in Southern California,
Okay.
um, as a ski instructor and as a coach. And the mountain, the head ski school director would take us on a training clinic, usually at some point during the day while you're at work, and
Hmm.
you'd work on. He would lead the class on working on your parallel or your turns or your hip movement or inclination, whatever it is. So they would be instructing us, and usually it's done on a closed course. It's not open to the public. Well, this particular day, the 28th of February at 3 o'clock in the afternoon,
Hmm.
um, I was involved in a clinic, a training clinic on the mountain, where we were running gates and practicing our racing technique. And so you're going in and out of bamboo poles, they call them gates.
Hmm.
So I had just left the start house. It's now about 3:30. I left the start house, approaching my first gate, maybe going 5 miles an hour at the most, maybe 10.
Hmm.
Somebody yells, "Watch out, watch out." Like, watch out for what? This is a closed course. There's not supposed to be anything here.
Ooh.
Next thing you know, um, I woke up in the hospital 3 days later.
Oh,
And
wow.
I I knew I was hit by something from behind and
Hmm.
pretty much assumed it was either an avalanche or like a snowmobile because I'm like 6'5" and I was,
Wow.
250, not a small guy. So I knew like something like hit me like really hard.
Hmm.
Turns out it was an out of control snowboarder doing like 60
Oh,
miles.
man.
So when he hit me, the whiplash basically cracked my own neck. So I broke the C6, C7. It cracked, went into my cord. Thank God, not all the way.
Right.
So partial. And then his board hit my back. So that was like T5, 6. And woke up, like I say, in the hospital a couple days later. And I really thought I was kind of in a loony bin or something because I was trying to get out of bed and I couldn't get up. And I
Oh,
thought I
wow.
was tied down or something, because it affected my
Hmm.
arms, my legs, everything. So they told me what happened, and it was a whole deal there. Got transferred to like another hospital, then rehab, all this other stuff, and I pretty much thought that sports was just done, was over. That was
Right.
part of my life that was
Right.
done. See ya, bye, whatever. Then I went to, fast forward a couple months later, and I went to one of these things called an abilities expo,
Okay.
where they would have like in a huge convention center, a huge hall, they would have different tables set up. Like here's a medical supply company with catheters. Here's a car company where you can get hand controls. Here's a
Okay.
construction company that'll help you construct the house and all this.
Hmm.
And
Now, this is all pre social media. It's kind
yeah,
of getting
yeah.
it. Okay. Yeah. Right. So you just
So I
managed to get to an abilities expo
so I
and
went
check
to
it
the
out.
Abilities Expo. It was in California, and then I'm just rolling and rolling around looking at the different tables, and then
Hmm.
somebody yelled, "Hey, you, come here!" And I'm like, I don't know anybody here, so I just kept rolling,
Right.
and somebody yelled again, "You, come here! You in the blue shirt!" And I'm like, oh, I guess I have a blue shirt, so but I don't know anybody, so I'm gonna keep rolling. So I kept rolling, and he goes, "You, come here, come here, come here!" And so finally I turned around, and he said, "Come here, come here." I'm like, "What? What's up?" And I see these guys doing something out there. It looked like some game they were playing, and
Hmm.
it wasn't basketball. I didn't know what it was, but and he says to me, "Get in this chair." I'm like, "No, why?" He goes, just do it. I'm like, "No, you don't understand. I just broke my neck, like a couple months ago." He's like, "So?"
Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean so? I'm like, dude, like I can't do any of this stuff. Like you don't understand. I can't feel my hands. I can't feel half my body. I'm like I can barely move. Like I'm not I'm not getting in that chair. There's no way. He goes, just
Hmm.
get in the chair. And he's like pushing me. I'm like, dude, I'm not getting in the chair. Okay. Like, I don't want to hurt my neck again. Like, I don't want any more problems. And he kept
Right.
at me. I'm like, finally, just to shut the guy up, I got in the damn chair,
Right.
Next thing you know, he pushed me out onto the court where these guys were playing this game. And I'm like, what the hell? So I try to turn and start pushing myself back. I don't know what I'm doing. Next thing you know, somebody hits me like head on really hard in this chair.
Right.
It was a sports chair. And I'm like, like if you ever played football, you got hit really hard where
Yeah.
like get the wind knocked out of you, like you can't even breathe, right? You're like, and I'm like, oh shit, I broke my neck again and all this. And I'm like, and I'm trying to, I'm trying to breathe. And then I'm trying to push myself off the side to the court, which I did finally. I pushed myself off the court and I'm trying to catch my breath, you know, and I was really nervous and shaking and upset. And I thought like something, you have rods in your neck and everything. I thought something happened there, and
Yeah.
I started catching my breath, but then John, I started to get mad that somebody
Okay.
hit me.
Yeah.
I started to get pissed that somebody hit me. I was
Right.
really pissed. I was so pissed. I rolled myself back out on the court and I hit the fucker that hit me with the chair, and it felt so good. Next thing you know, somebody threw me this ball and I caught it. And he said,
Right.
go that way, run, go, go that way. And I'm like pushing, pushing. Next thing you know, I scored a goal. It was wheelchair rugby, aka
Right.
murder ball. I had no clue what I was doing. But the point is, all of a sudden, I knew, like, well, shit, maybe I can do this. I caught the ball. I didn't
Right.
think something with my hands could catch. I caught the ball. I
Mhm.
pushed my ass down the court and I scored the goal. Nobody stopped me. They tried to, but I'm a bigger
Right.
guy. And then he says to me, the guy says to me to push me out on the court. He says, "What are you doing Tuesday night?" I go, "I don't know. Why?" He goes, "Come up to
Mhm.
practice. We're having practice with the team. You're on the team." I'm like, "Oh
Nice.
shit, okay." And so, yeah, man, anybody that's newly injured, it's all about sports. Get involved, whether it's, I don't know, bodybuilding or
Right.
rugby or bobsled or sled hockey, whatever. There's stuff
Mhm.
out there where you can get back to yourself and do your thing and
Right.
find your little niche. Like I say, whether it's in the gym working out or hockey or whatever, that's ride a
Right.
bike. There's tons of stuff that's out there that you can do, and
Mhm.
just having that opportunity that by chance this guy changed my
Sure.
life. He
Right.
literally changed
Right.
my life. And
So
so
before that, you're rolling through the expo, like, what's going through your head, before this scenario, so we're what, say 8 months post injury, and
yeah,
just what's
maybe
kind of going through your mind at this time?
I was just like, trying to figure out what all this stuff is about, and what's all this stuff. I didn't know anybody there,
Mhm.
and I didn't
Were you
really.
in a good spot? Like, were you in a good headspace at only 8 months post injury?
Um, I really didn't. I wasn't really in a great spot, to be honest with you. I was
Right.
just trying to figure everything out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was still. I mean, first of all, I guess I should back up and tell you that I didn't leave the house for 6 months.
Okay.
After
Right.
rehab, because
Mhm.
I I was afraid.
Yeah.
And number one, I didn't want my friends to see me in the chair because
Okay.
I was too arrogant or whatever.
Mhm.
And I, like I couldn't get back in my chair from the floor. And
Right.
like what would happen if I hit a bottle cap or something, which I've
Mhm.
hit rocks, I've hit bottle caps, and I
Sure.
ended up out of the chair.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I literally did not leave the house for 6 months. And finally, I got to the space where I just said, fuck it, I don't care. Pardon my
Right.
language. I'm like, I'm just gonna
Sure.
go. Whatever happens, happens.
Mhm.
And the first place I went to, because I was living in a small town in California near the ski resort, and all they had there was really 3 bars and one movie theater, and that was it. So my
Right.
first place was to the bar that I used to go to and dance and all this other stuff.
Gotcha.
And it felt awkward being there because that's not where I wanted to be. I didn't want my friends and people to see me in the chair. You know what I'm saying? Because
Mhm.
then that's questions, or they're staring at you, or this or that or whatever. But you know what? Again, I just said fuck it, and I just went. And I had
Right.
a few beers. I had a good time, and that, okay, I started to live life again a little bit,
Mhm.
and it was tough because that's the resort area where I had gotten hurt too.
Right.
So it was challenging, but um, I was just lucky that I had heard about this Abilities Expo, and
For
just by
sure.
chance, like I say, this guy just, where would I have been if he didn't introduce this to me, or if I didn't
Right.
even leave the house and have the courage to leave
Sure.
the house and go to the Abilities Expo and stuff. And
Right.
so, I mean, it was took a lot of courage and stuff, and I got it somehow, somewhere, and was lucky enough to have somebody share with me, and tell me. He was bugging me. I'm like, what
Mhm.
the hell does this guy want? You know? And
Right.
I kept saying no, you know, and um finally I did shoot. I gotta take this call. It's my doctor. Can you hold on 1 second, man? I
Yeah, no worries,
apologize.
man. No worries.
One
Yep.
second. Hey, Aaron, I'm just finishing a Zoom meeting. Can you call me back in like 5 or 10 minutes?
Quit
Thanks,
losing.
man. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
We'll
Bye.
go outside in a minute. This one's bugging me right here. See this little thing.
Cool. My doctor's really cool. So yeah, man, I was just lucky that I had this opportunity where the guy just you know, he didn't know me from Adam, I didn't know him from Adam,
Right.
and you know, showed me that there's stuff out there. Look, I never played hockey in my life. I never
Mhm.
drove before I got hurt, and I never drove a bobsled before I got hurt.
Right.
There's so many things I never did, you know.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, somebody says, "Come down and play some hockey," you know, and they start teaching me a little bit about hockey and all this. And
Mhm.
you know, with hockey, they give you these two sticks that you got to push yourself around the
Right.
ice. But because of my hands
Mhm.
at the time, I couldn't hold on to the stick. So, being a smaller guy, they said, "Why don't you try going in the goal?" I'm like, "Okay, I'll go in the goal." I hated it. I couldn't stop a puck if I tried, and you know, the puck would ding my helmet in the head and ring my bell. I'm like, you know what? And after a while, I think the coach figured out that I wasn't enjoying it, and I
Right.
started talking to him, and I think he thought I was going to quit, but
Okay.
it's not my vocabulary. I wasn't going to quit, but I was thinking about it because I
Yeah.
wasn't having any fun and I wasn't stopping any pucks. And I said to the coach one day, I'm like, you know, you guys just need somebody to shoot at, and I'm not really enjoying this. You know, he goes, Dave, you don't understand. I'm like, what? He goes, Dave, let me tell you, being a goalie is like one of the most important, if not the most important position on the team. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're just telling me that because you don't want me to quit. That's all. You're
Right.
just saying that. And he said, no, go talk to some other people. So I did. And I was like, holy shit, he's right, you know? And
Yeah.
so fast forward, I started, you know, catching a few pucks here, catching a few pucks there, here, there, wherever. Got invited to try out for Team USA. I'm like, okay, this is
Mhm.
amazing, you know?
Nice.
And then next thing you know, a buddy of mine that I introduced to bobsled who lived down in Vegas, is like, Dave, the NHL is starting a team down here, and they're helping to start a para team as well. You know, you
Right.
should come and try out for goalie. I'm like, okay. Well, I can't. Went down there, tried out, and they're like, you got the job, and I'm like, oh,
Nice.
sweet. You know, so that's been a wild ride. They have us at
Now
T-Mobile.
that's the Las Vegas Knights. Is that right?
Yeah, the Vegas Golden Knights, and
Right.
we play at T-Mobile Arena right there down there by the MGM on the Strip.
Okay.
14 or
Cool.
sorry 18,500 people, and
Yeah.
they put us out there with the other Knights during halftime,
Oh wow.
and they do a shootout on me, and I'm like, okay, time to focus, you know.
Mhm.
So they did a shootout. I stopped 10 out of 10. The guys come up to me with these golden mics from the TV and everything. They're like, Dave, how does it feel to stop to have a shootout and have a shutout before Mark
Right.
Fleury? And I was like, I didn't know who the hell Fleury was. And I
Right.
almost, in front of 18,000 people, I almost said, well, who the hell is Mark Fleury? Man, I would have been pelted, pelted
Right.
with tomatoes. But luckily, I was like, you know, he must be somebody important. So I'm like, oh, yeah, man, it was cool. You know, I
Nice.
didn't know. And
Nice.
then I found out he was like the star goalie for the Vegas Golden Knights who brought the team to the playoffs like 2 or 3 times already, you know. And here I
Wow.
didn't know who the hell he was, you know. So there's
Yeah.
been,
Yeah. Wow.
but I've just been lucky to have these opportunities, and I just
Sure.
encourage anybody that's really, you know, if you're recently injured, you know, check out, you know, with your social worker or Google, go online, you know,
Right.
watch these podcasts and see there's opportunities out there, whether it's rugby, basketball,
Yeah.
archery, bobsled,
Sure.
skiing, water skiing, snow skiing, hiking, biking. It's all this stuff out there, you know.
Sure. Sure. Like life is, the old life is over. Might as well accept that, but the new life is just beginning.
Now there's a lot out there, man. There's a lot out
Oh
there.
yeah.
It's crazy, and you
Oh
get the
yeah.
best
Oh
part of
yeah.
it too, you know.
That's right. That's right. Best parking, VIP treatment, and all kind of stuff. At least like because I just competed at the Arnold up there, and that was a hell of an experience. You know, really got treated like somebody. It was like, ooh, this is nice. You know, like instead of like being treated like I'm in somebody's way. You know how it goes out there. You know,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you're at an expo or something like that. So yeah, I was running over people, and they were apologizing to me. It was great.
Yes, there you go. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, good
So
stuff. Right on.
heck yeah, we'll have to talk some more some other time. I appreciate you taking your time and chatting with me today. Um, yeah, it's been very very good chat, man. Like I dig it. Like I'm all about the bobsled stuff now. So we'll have to see where you're carrying that thing next.
Well, the season is pretty much over. This is the end of the season, so we're
Hmm.
looking forward towards doing some in-house ice house training in Lake Placid in the
Okay.
next few months. Well, we're going to take 2 months off, and then we'll go back to the ice house, and we'll go with the
Okay.
guys and start working things out there. But we won't be on track again probably till October,
All right.
the end of
Awesome.
October.
So if somebody wanted to get in touch with you in the meantime, what would be the channels to reach you through?
The best way is really my email, which is
Okay.
bobsled, BOBSLED,
Mhm.
gold, like the first medal that I won for Israel,
Nice.
and at gmail.com. So bobsled
Okay.
gold at
All right.
gmail.com. That's the best way. And just if you put bobsled in the subject line or para bobsled um,
Okay.
or para sports, whatever, because, I
Sure.
get a lot of mail and stuff.
Right.
I'll get
Okay.
back to you as soon as I can and answer any questions or help to point you in
Rock
whatever
on.
direction I can.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. So I hope hopefully some guys will reach out and they'll say, "Hey Dave, man, I want to get down with this parasledding thing that you're into." So heck yeah.
Yeah,
I hope to see it grow like any of the sports. Like I said, I'm in the wheelchair bodybuilding. I want to see those guys grow, you know, I want to see some more competition out there.
yeah,
Even I mean it's a pro sport, so like I think the number one place at the Arnold for the wheelchair guys got 12 grand.
yeah. That's amazing, and it's only
So
recently where the
right,
bobsledders have been getting paid on some World Cups and World Cup
nice,
championships, which is really
nice.
really nice. But if bobsled wasn't a such a weight sensitive sport, man,
Hmm.
I wish I could be out there doing what you're doing because anytime I go to the gym, I start putting on pounds because muscle is
Yeah,
weight,
right,
and I can't build. It's like I don't need any more weight. I cannot be
right.
over 214 pounds.
Sure,
Otherwise,
sure.
because the max is 220 with your
Okay.
helmet, you
Wow.
know?
Yeah. So we can get you on a regimen though to where you're not so heavy.
Huh?
I say we can get you on a regimen where you ain't so heavy. You know,
Well,
like
what I'm saying is that
add in the cardio and diet, and we'll get you down.
well, no, I want to build is what I'm saying, and I can't. I
Right.
like because I build the muscle, and then the muscle
Sure.
puts me over 220 pounds, and then
Oh
I'll
yeah. Yeah.
I'll
Right.
DQ in bobsled. So I
Sure.
have to be
Yeah.
under. Actually, I can't be more than 218 because my helmet and my shoes and all this stuff would be
Okay.
right at
Right.
220, and you don't want to cut it that close. So
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
so
Got to
yeah,
make weight.
I'm working on cutting anyway because I'm still a little over now that the season's over.
Right.
But
Sure. Sure. Right on.
sure,
Yeah. Well,
cool.
if you need a hand with anything, there's plenty of good coaches out there who can help you with your weight and stuff if that's what you need
Yeah,
help with.
yeah, yeah.
Weight and also physicality. You know, really. So
Good,
yeah,
good stuff.
I hired a coach and like we've been through two preps together now, so I think he probably knows my body a little better than I do. It's like eat this,
Yeah.
don't eat this, you know, all that stuff. So that's pretty wild.
How many calories do you usually go with when you're eating, when you're prepping?
Well, like on prep, it just depends. Like it's more in how I'm looking. So like if I really need to cut hard, then we'll cut hard, you know. So it'll probably be probably 1600, 1700 calorie range, somewhere in there, which is probably about half of what I'm doing normally,
Yeah,
somewhere in that range. Yeah.
I can't go more than 1400 or 1500.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
sure.
I'm not reducing. you know.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
I got to be
yeah.
right
So,
in that zone.
oh yeah, and I was hitting like 2 hours a day cardio, like an hour in the morning fasted, and then an hour in the evening on the non-workout days, then an hour after a workout. So it was pretty. It gets pretty
Nice.
intense for the prep. You know, it's pretty. I guess it's
Yeah.
pretty extreme, really, because like you look really healthy, but in truth, you're really not that healthy because you've cut your fat down to nothing. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's, you
right.
know, what you guys do, man. I don't know if I could do it, but more power to you.
Right on, right on. Heck yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Well, Dave,
Yeah.
it's good talking with you, man. So hopefully we can
Yeah.
get back together sometime soon. This series is going to come out like this weekend. I'm doing like five other chats like this, so it's going to trickle out, and
Wait, I'm
I'm going
not
to
your
try
only
to.
one? What?
Right, right, yeah, yeah. I'm trying to bring the awareness, man. Talk to as many wheelchair athletes as I can. That's the whole goal, because
Nice.
everybody has a little different story and does things a little different. And at the end of the day, could be inspiration for the person who's laying in the hospital bed just wondering, what the hell do I do now?
Yeah,
So
you reminded me. I got somebody I got to visit tonight in down at the U, who they just brought him in from Boise. He's been hurt for a
ooh,
little bit, but
right.
now that he's here in Salt Lake, I can go
Mhm.
and visit because Boise's too far to. I mean, you know, it's a long way to drive.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. So yeah, that's gonna like my coach doesn't want me to do the show in Idaho, which is going to be June 1st in Boise. Speaking of Boise, so
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm going to be able to talk him into letting me do it or not, because I think he wants to do like a full on off season and get gigantic and then come back next year. I don't know. We'll see.
yeah. Talk to your coach, man. Listen, I got to
Yeah,
roll,
that's
but
right.
thanks again for having
Yeah,
me. I
man.
appreciate
It's
it.
good talking with you. Thanks
Yeah,
again. So,
holler
all right,
anytime. You
man.
got my email,
Absolutely.
bobsledgold@gmail.com. All right,
Yes,
man.
sir. Yes, sir. All right, Dave. Have a good one now. Thanks.
Thanks again. Take care.
Yes, sir.